Okay, so this is Parshat Beshalach, the famous parasha that talks about the miracles of the Red Sea, splitting the Red Sea. Again, big shout out here to Etzion who just surprised us. What a wonderful surprise. Baruch haba b'shem Hashem. Eat, don't be shy. And of course, the all the miracles everybody talks about. But I would like to present to you a different angle on the splitting. Amen. On the splitting of the Yam Suf. And it's basically a description that puts us between anxiety to creative belief, to creative emunah. Now, the splitting of the Red Sea is not just a historical, man, I'm so happy to see you. It's not just an historical event that happened, but it's more of a spiritual format that comes back again in every generation and sometimes to every person throughout his life. There's a lot of symbolism in this parasha, and we're going to take a different look. As you all know, we always do that. We take a different look for that on the symbolism. So, for example, when we look at what we call the Red Sea, the water is not just, the ocean is not just water. It really represents something that it's the unknown, right? The great depth of the sea. If you ever sailed, you don't see anything around, just ocean. And it really represents what we don't have control over. Almost just like in dreams, when a person goes and falls asleep and dreams that he sees waves in his dream in the ocean, it really represents an oncoming anxiety that comes to you, an uncontrolled situation. And the representation of the Mitzrayim, of the Egyptians, is the coming from the back is not just a group of people that are coming to chase them, but it really represents the past that kind of haunts us and doesn't let go of things that happened to us in the past. These are all unbelievable symbolism, all the habits that we have, the fears that we have, different identities that we assume on ourselves throughout the years. So, or just were placed to us, whether it's sometimes, I don't know anymore, who am I? Am I the child? Am I the son? Am I the friend? And it's kind of haunting you all the time. It's following you. Those snakes and scorpions from the sides really are the small, because they were in the desert, right? So the snakes and scorpions, these are like the small anxieties that really bite us all the time. This unbelievable thing that bite us all the time and create constant fear in our life, almost like irritates our nerves to no end. And the ocean in front of them, right, really represents an existential threat, because where am I going here? If I'm going to go forward, I might lose everything, within a second, within a minute. So therefore the soul, the spirit of the person is looking for a solution that would reduce the risk to go back, to kind of regress, to go back to what it was, right? And maybe, that's one solution. Maybe like this, it's going to be better. I'm going to solve it. Or sometimes the soul wants to fight, and that is trying to control something with force. Right, that's what that's what we think to do, or maybe just to pray alone, just to sit down and just do nothing and absolutely pray, which is going to be somewhat of a passive spiritual retreat. In other words, I'm trying to retreat, but very passive, but spiritual like this. But here comes the Torah. That's what most of us would do, or most people operate under those solutions to solve those problems. But here comes the Torah, and then again, the Torah is so amazing that it's just unbelievable in terms of the depth of it. And the Torah gives us a fourth option, which is an amazing option. In a way, the fourth option is quite radical. It's not the same thing. It's action. We have to take action from absolute emunah. Action that comes from emunah, from belief. Even that the mind doesn't really see how this is all going to work out, right? We still need to act from a place of emunah. So it's basically a combination of all that stuff together. And then Kadosh Baruch Hu comes and tells us, he tells Moshe Rabbeinu, Moshe comes and cries to Kadosh Baruch Hu, and he says, listen, Mateo, Mati Tzakelai, what are you yelling at me? What do you want? Just get up and do, what do you want? So when the tefillah, in this case, and this is a very important point, sometimes prayer, or what we know as and I know there are going to be plenty of people going to get completely ticked off by it, but hey, it's pretty cold outside, you can roll in the snow to chill out, and have some cold drink or whatever it is, I don't really care, but I'm going to say what's got to be said. Sometimes prayer would become an obstacle in finding a solution. Sometimes it would do. Sometimes you just need to get up and go. You need to roll your sleeves and go. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not saying that tefillah does not help. But on the contrary, Onkelos, and it's not that the Bnei Israel prayed and HaKadosh Baruch Hu did not hear him, say, okay, guys, I'm not hearing you. Onkelos on the Torah emphasizes, it says that tefillah was accepted, but something was missing. And it's a very deep concept that is being revealed within this segment that is coming to tell us that this concept actually happens within our soul, each and every one of us. There are moments that sometimes prayer becomes a way for us not to do. We choose prayer, and it seems like we are such righteous people, but that's exactly, we use this prayer as an excuse for us not to do anything. And that's very bad. And unfortunately, I'm going to tell you this. Again, you want to get annoyed, no offense meant. Sometimes we use Torah on the same matter. And we got to be very careful. I tell you a big thing is like, and you know what I hold about it? I think Torah is the most amazing thing out there in the world, and it's an absolute gift that God has given Bnei Israel, an absolute gift that is maybe more precious than life itself, because life without Torah is not life. But you cannot use Torah not to help your brothers and sisters in Israel that sacrifice their lives and they go to the army. And if you're going to tell me that if you go into the army you're going to go off the path, I don't think you were on the path to begin with. If you're going to tell me you're going to learn, if you're going to go to the military and you're not going to be able to learn Torah, I'm going to tell you I don't know how much Torah you learned so far anyway. And if you don't want to accept what I have to say, that's perfectly fine. Go speak to Rav Shmuel Eliyahu from Tzfat, see what he says about the matter. See what he says about the matter. When a person just prays, and sometimes, listen, we know we need to, and by the way, the same thing happened to Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov Avinu in one point, and this is, we don't learn from that. We need to continue praying, but we also need to get ready for war. And that's what he did. He prayed, he was getting ready to war. The same thing happens here. So sometimes a person stays in a place of only requesting. When I pray, I'm requesting, because an action would demand from you to put yourself in risk, right? But you know what happened on October 7th? Those people threw themselves into saving their brothers and sisters without actually thinking about their own safety. There were tremendous heroism, both for men and women. What they did, those people over there, was just unbelievable. They're willing to sacrifice their life, but that's an action that was needed. Imagine if they would just sit like this and pray, they would all been slaughtered. I mean, a lot of them did, but how many were saved because of this action that the people took? From a psychological point of view, right? Prayer will be staying within a known entity, a known quantity, right?
Comfort zone.
It's a comfort zone, right? In other words, I'm waiting. I'm praying and I'm waiting. And action will be, I'm giving on false control. Most people don't want to give up on false control. People think that they have a lot of control. But truth of the matter is, if you're going to sit down and going to analyze how powerful you are, you're not. You're not. You may be powerful in your own little imaginary world, but practically speaking, you're not. So be willing to give up on this illusion. Most people don't want to give you on this illusion. So what happens when when Moshe Rabbeinu was crying to God, and God says, well, what are you crying to me? Just get up and go. Mati tzakela. So basically what is happening, again, it's not that God says, I don't want to hear you guys. What are you yelling at me? I don't want to hear you. On the contrary, what God is saying to you is something completely different. I'm already connected to you. You pray, already connected to you. However, now you need to connect to reality. When you sit down and do absolutely nothing, you're not willing to connect to reality. And then you don't connect to reality, you are disconnected from reality. You're disconnected from the world, and you're going to miss the target by a mile. All you got to do is connect to reality, to what needs to be done. You do it and I'll help you. That's what God says. But you need to do it. The Itorerut has to come from down here up to bring the Shefa down. You can't just sit there and just wait. I mean, that's a matter of arrogance also to think that you deserve a miracle based on what? What do you deserve a miracle for? It's a certain level of arrogance. What do you think? You're doing God a favor, you're sitting down and learning Torah, so that's why He needs to sponsor you. Well, why are you willing to do for it? Let's see now, whatever you learned, how you're going to actually implement it to life. Because otherwise, how do I know that the Torah really had an effect on you? But how is it that you can sit down and learn Torah and still stay the same buffoon as you were before? You're not selfish, you're not willing to help anyone. You're thinking you're doing people a favor. No, you are giving a favor by learning. And now it says, okay, get up and do something with it. It's like the famous story about when they talk about this guy who became a Baal Tshuva and goes to, he goes to Yeshiva, sits down in Yeshiva, and he learns and he learns and he learns. And all of a sudden he said, you know what, this is so amazing. I'm going to go out to the world there. I'm going to go out and spread the world, the gospel, And then God says to him, the Mashgiach says to him, listen, sit down here. It's not time for you. Sit down and learn. Don't go out. So he learns and he learns and he learns and he elevates himself in learning and so on and so forth. All of a sudden one day he feels a tap on his shoulder. And then he turns around and sees the Mashgiach. The Mashgiach says, it's time for you to go out and do something. He says, no, I need to learn. What do you mean I'm going to go out? Let somebody else do it. It's the same person. It's the same person. How do I know that what you learn, and why are you learning if not to make this world better? But you sitting down and you think the world's going to get better by itself. It's not. You need to do it. You're not at that level. Rav Ovadia Yosef says that in our generation we should not count on the fact that the Torah had promised us on the 6th year of the Shemitah cycle enough to have to for the 6th, the 7th, and the 8th. And why is this? Because he says we know that we are not at this level. And that's how Rav Ovadia, you agree with it, don't agree with it, it's a different inyan. But in terms of hashkafa, of an outlook, he says that's why you could rely on the heter mechira that they do in Shvi'it, because we are not at this level. Put this into work. Put the Torah that you have into work. Don't just sit there and isolate yourself from society. Integrate into this society. I want to tell you, if after October 7th, if people would have said, you know what, there's something horrible happened to us, guys, sometimes we need to do something that that needs to be done. I mean, en ma lasot. Look at the Rambam, Melachot Mamrim over there, what he writes. I'm not saying that. It says, guys, let's leave a group of people in every yeshiva, 10 people to learn, 20 people to learn. Everybody else go outside and go volunteer. I'm willing to bet 50% of secular Israelis will become religious on the dot. Reach out. Show that you care. You want me to observe Torah mitzvot? Why? You don't care about me. We need to put this into action. We need to put our words into action. So, what was the name of the guy who jumped into the water? Nachshon what? Ben Aminadav, Nachshon, right? One of those names that for whatever reason is not that popular. Yeah, I mean, we should make it more popular. Nachshon was a great guy. So Nachshon is not he's not a Rambo. He's not a physical hero, but he's a hero of awareness. In other words, he's present at the moment. He represents the moment in which a person stops asking this question: is this safe for me to do this? Right? and starts asking, am I truthful to the truth that I believe in? In other words, am I truthful to what I'm believing? And that's a very important transition that we all have to make. Many times we don't want to do it because we know the answer. But am I really truthful to what I believe in? Do I walk the walk also, or just talk the talk? That's what Nachshon represents. And they said that when Nachshon went, the water reached up to his nose, right? To his nose. And why dafka to his nose? What's his nose? In other words, until what we call where he starts, when he's breathing. How is it called breathing in Hebrew? Neshima. Neshima. In other words, until this point where your nervous system is really starting saying, hey, listen, it's dangerous here. Water, he's walking into the water like this. And the water is up to here and nothing is happening. It's dangerous. The instinct would be, hey, listen, I'm all the way up to here. I'm going to drown here. Let me go out. Let's just, spin around a couple of chickens over our hands and, we'll do some prayers or, we'll do this and the other thing. Maybe that will help. No, he continued going. So, from a psychological point of view, this is a moment in which a person does not act from an external security. In other words, what we call bitachon chitzoni, external security, but rather from internal value. And when we don't want to question the point, do we really live up to what the truth that we claim is the truth? We don't live up to it. That really means that we don't, or we are lacking internal values. We are all externals, not internal. And it might be hard for you to hear that. Might be hard for you to hear it. But listen, somebody got to say it. So the jump that Nachshon does, and by the way, when we used to call an act like this, when I was a kid, like jumping into a pool like this, we used to call it Kfitzat Nachshon. When he just jumped into the water this way, right? This is a jump that is it's not an impulsive jump. It's not that he's not thinking. It's not an impulsive jump, but rather the leap that he does, the jump that he does into the water, it's come from deep loyalty to the truth and to the principles in which he thought that's what he believed in. When you can't do it, means that you don't have this internal depth. And that's something that if you do so, if you don't fix it, at least don't preach what you don't believe in or what you're lacking. There's a story of Rabbi Levi from from Berdichev. He explains here something very, which I think is amazing. It's some kind of like an awareness rule that he has here, which is extremely precise. He says, and listen carefully. I think you would like this. The divine reality acts like a dynamic mirror. Acts like a dynamic, and that's kind of what we were talking about on the phone the other day. It's not a mirror that reflects what we have. In other words, whoever stands in front of the mirror, but rather responds to how you act. In other words, if you act through fear, the mitziut, the reality, condenses, right? Like Mitzrayim. And if you're acting from emunah, opportunities happen to you. Emunah is not... Yeah, you came from Israel, right? And I know everybody in Israel now sings Od Yoter Tov, Od Yoter, which is very nice. It's a good song. I'm happy people are dancing. I'm happy people are happy. Maybe it helps their emunah. But let's graduate out of first grade. Acting like that, the real emunah is not to know that it's going to be good. The real emunah is really to behave as all the good is possible. All the good is tangible. I just need to want to do it, and I need to do it. All the good is is possible. Everything is there in front of you. But nobody is going to serve it to you. You need to get up and get it. But that's what you need to do. Saying that, listen, everything comes from Hashem, but you need to, in order to be partners, in order not to, chas v'shalom, at the end, to actually, how should I say it, reject God's good, or God's, kindness. God created the mechanism that we're going to be partners. In other words, we need to do something also. We need to do something as well. You need to contribute. In order to be a partner, you need to contribute. Give me something to contribute. Otherwise, we're not partners. Same thing like we go as a guest, you go to a Hanukkah candle, right? So let's say I'm going to Eitan's house, and he's lighting the Hanukkah candle. I say, okay, let's be partners with it. And I give him a quarter. I'm partners with oil, so now we are together. So in order to do this partnership, God says, okay, you gotta give me something to be partners, and that's going to be your effort. I'm going to give you all the good, but you need to get up and get it. So what Rabbi Levi Mibarditchev says, Rabbi Yitzchak Mibarditchev says, that reality works according to what you put in. HaKadosh Baruch Hu interacts with you the same way. You want to get opportunities? Get off your whatever and start doing things. And act that you believe that God will help you. But if you sit down and you believe that God will help you, that's not going to happen. That's how reality is. It's like a dynamic mirror that shows you your actions, shows you where you are, not who you are, and where you are. And for me, it's like unbelievable. That is the concept when he says Hashem tzilecha, Hashem yeminecha, right? What is tzilecha? Tzel, what's a tzel? Tzel is a shadow. God is your shadow. In other words, your shadow is casted based on who you are. God is always there, always on your right side, casting a shadow based on who you are. If you are overweight, let's say you really need to be 150 and you really weigh 300, you're going to go in the shadow. The shadow is not going to, it's going to show you who you are. That's how it is, right? Regardless of that, many times you're going to look in the mirror and you say, okay, let's say, a little overweight, but not so bad. The shadow doesn't lie, right? And that is the rule of what we call the spiritual mirror. The way things happen to you is your spiritual mirror. When a person lives in an unauthentic way, in other words, is not so truthful, the world to him seems like a big threat. When a person lives from a choice, he says, I need to make choices, I need to make decisions, I need to do things. The world seems to him like an open prairie. You just go wherever you want, like this big space that you could do. There's no limits. Do whatever you want. Endless opportunities, because you know you are choosing, and that's why it's important to choose. It's very convenient when people tell you what to do. When you're so-called forced, and you play the victim. I'm forced to do this. I'm forced to do that. This is just a form of laziness. You want something, go ahead and do it. And you see it a lot for example, in existential psychology, sees anxiety not as a breakdown, not something that there needs to be a repair or something like this, but rather as a reaction, in a way, a healthy reaction to an experience that you had with a facing freedom. Eric Form said it many times. It's called the fear of freedom, right? A person walks, let's say, on the beach. He goes into the water, of course, in a tzanua place, right? Right? He goes to the beach and he goes to the water. All of a sudden, he feels good. All of a sudden, he goes and there's just a little dip like this in the thing, and right away he crunches his legs up, and he might even drown in shallow water because he can panic. I mean, just straight to your left, relax. Say, oh, it's okay. It's not so deep. I'm okay. So that's when anxiety comes. When a person stands in front of an opportunity of real change, right? It is quite normal that you're going to have some kind of an existential anxiety. Whatever is going to happen, and so on and so forth. But we're not just talking about, in most cases, not just a fear of what would happen, but rather fear from who am I going to be when I'm going to walk forward myself. And this is exactly what happens in the Red Sea. That's why exactly in Yam Suf. And therefore Yam Suf represents, as we said before, the unknown, right? It's not the unknown. If you look for those people, yes, but really it represents the opportunities. You just need to walk into the water. Don't be afraid. Because if you're going to live through the anxiety, what's going to happen to you? You're going to stay there and you're going to be butchered. So look at the Yam Suf as the opportunity, right? That in other words, and what's the fear? The fear is that I cannot blame the past anymore. I cannot blame the past anymore, right? Which Egypt was, as we said, with known quantity. We know exactly what Egypt was. Even if it was painful being in Egypt, people didn't want to be need to be free. Why? Because freedom demands from you to be responsible. And people don't want to be responsible, right? Because if I'm going to fail, from this point on, it's on me. It's on me. I don't want to fail. And that's why anxiety says it's better for us to go back to Egypt, right? Even though, not because Egypt was so good, but we would rather go back to Egypt because we knew it was a known quantity. We knew how to deal with it. We don't want anything new. I'll tell you a small secret. Many years ago, I was faced with an opportunity to make a extremely long-term military career, which, I'll tell you the truth, was very tempting. It was very tempting. My biggest deterrent was the fact, and I told this to my chief of squadron, I said to him the following, and he was, at the beginning, didn't understand why I keep saying no to this, but we had a good relationship, and I told him that. I said, listen, I'm right now young. I was 22, 23 years old, 22, 23, something like that sort. Yes, I was after, yeah. So I said to him, if I'm going to go along with this plan, after I'm going to finish with all my obligations and that I had to sign up for this and sign up for that, and for every year, you go for school, you have to sign for 2 more years and so on and so on. I'm going to be about 38, maybe 40 years old. At that point, I would not know, and I will be a very powerful person. But at that point, I would not know if I got to where I got because of my abilities or because I was sheltered within the system. So he said to me, but you might go out now and then find out that you are nothing. I said to him, absolutely, that's exactly the point. I would rather go now and find out that I'm nothing and do something about it. Then I'll come up at 40 thinking that I'm so mighty and powerful, and then realize that I'm actually a nothing and I didn't get here. And the only reason I got here is because of my, ability to maneuver within the ranks. He said to me, I hear you. The only thing I can wish to you is good luck. Because I could do something about it. But that's being responsible. If I, for example, have money and I want to invest the money, well, I need to learn how to do so. Because if I'm going to rely on somebody else, that means I'm only looking for somebody to blame, but I'm not taking responsibility as a free man to my destiny. And that's the fear the Bnei Israel had. That's a great fear that they had. So we have to know that emunah, living through faith, creates a reality. And by the way, this is not as a slogan, but as a spiritual structure or a psychological structure of the person itself. When a person acts from confidence, he acts from confidence, his nerve system relaxes because he's confident about it. It's not a problem. He knows what to do. And when that happens, your awareness expands. And then the person all of a sudden is able to see different opportunities that he did not see before. Because when you are in Mitzrayim, in that state of Egypt, when everything is condensed and you live from fear, you can't see anything. Many times, call it the matrix for lack of better terms, wants you to be dazed and confused. Wants you to be in this Mitzrayim, because like this they could manipulate you, becoming worker. Another number in the matrix. They don't want you to be independent. They don't want you to think for yourself. They're going to tell you what's in style and what's not in style. Do whatever you want. Take responsibility. What will people say? I don't care what they said. That's the way I chose to dress. I mean, you got a problem with that? So I'm wearing stuff that it's like was not in style in the 70s. Okay, that's how I choose to wear. I mean, what, you have a problem with that? I'm willing to take full responsibility for that. Because you know why? Because I'm a free man. And I'm going to tell you something. One way to know if somebody actually wants your freedom or not is if he talks so much that he is the only one, or they are the only ones to be able to give you freedom. Those who will promise you freedom, if you're only going to vote to them, you know that these are the ones who will take your freedom faster than anybody else. Those are going to tell you, listen, you got to work, you got to be responsible, you got to do this, and so on and so forth. These are the people who would actually offer you freedom, but they will tell you, first of all, freedom is in your hands, not in my hands. All those who call themselves liberals, it's all about taking your liberty. It's just pathetic, but that's what it is. So, and this is exactly how the miracle of Yam Suf had occurred. The ocean was not split from above, right? It stopped, the ocean stopped becoming an obstacle. Pay attention. The ocean stopped becoming an obstacle once their awareness changed of phase. The way they saw it, it's not an obstacle anymore. This is an opportunity. All of a sudden, for them it's split, right? That's why the miracle, what happened was that it became dry. It became a dry path, right? Now, how do we say dry in Hebrew?
Yavesh.
Yavesh. And also, Valchu bayam ba yabasha. Yabasha means the earth, soil. And that represents stability. When you feel the ground, when you are grounded, you feel stable. Which is by doing so, it represents a reality in which now I can live within this reality. Before you saw an ocean, I saw an opportunity. That is a reality I can live with. When you cannot see any options, when you don't have plans for your future, when you don't have plans for your future, when you don't desire anything in the future, not desire, money. Money is not a desire. It's not something to desire. But when you have a plan you want to achieve, whether you will reach those goals or not, that's not the question. But once you start thinking like this, you're going to create movement, you're going to feel good, everything is going to change. Whoa, today is like the day I'm seeing everybody like unbelievable. So when we're talking about there's two different things. There's what we call olam ovel, a passing word, and then the olam of the kiseh. Answer him, right? So that is a shefa, abundance that comes, and you should know this. Pay attention, bubale. Abundance that comes without participation of men in it, right? It stays very, very. It's passing. It's not something that will stay with you. But an abundance, shefa, that was created from awakening from below. As the Zohar said, we are awakening is like this. In other words, we are initiating the bringing down of the shefa. This is kind of abundance that actually stabilizes and actually has to do something. In other words, if somebody, and you see it all the time, if you work hard and you made $1 million, you work hard, you made $1 million, those $1 million are going to turn into $2, you're going to save it. If you win the lottery $1 million, you're going to lose it. It's exactly what happens. There is no substitute for hard work. In order to hard work, you have to know why you're working for. You need to create a vision for yourself. And this is the difference between Yeshua that actually saves, or to a Yeshua that actually builds a new type of personality. And when they see the Shirah, when they sing Az Yeshir Moshe, then Moshe would sing. This is not just saying thank you God and so on and so forth, but rather creating a constant, stable state of awareness where the identity of free people was born with the ability to say thanks, because a free person is able to appreciate what was done for him because he knows how hard it takes to do so. And that's so if you are an ungrateful person, you basically have a slave mentality. And it's not difficult to say thank you. So if we're going to take this to try to apply it to our lives, so therefore the splitting of the Yam Suf happens every single time when we know what is right, but we're waiting for a sign that is going to show us that we're not going to drown, right? And the answer that God will tell you is, the ocean is already ready. The question is, are you ready to jump into the water? Are you willing to make the leap? Are you willing to? And these anxieties happen to us all the time when we graduate out of school, when we transition from one thing to another into the unknown. Everything is ready. The whole set is ready for you to actually start playing the role. Are you ready, or you have some kind of a performance anxiety? You're not willing to do so. Therefore, you stay behind the stage. The real emunah is not expecting miracles, but rather being ready to become the kli, to become the vessel in which the miracle will happen through. That is real emunah. If we're going to have, if I'm going to step on solid soil or not, right? Instead of that, the question should be asked, am I willing to step also when it's still wet, not when it's dry? And I'm willing to take the initiative to create that path, either for myself or for others. So this is I think this parasha is a tremendous parasha to take initiative in your life. And don't tell me that you really believe in Hashem when you're not. Believing in Hashem means you're willing to roll your sleeves, jump into the water, roll in the mud, and do what needs to be done. That is really emunah. I think that for me at least, that's the greatest lesson that I at least could learn, and that's why I shared with you with this parasha when it talks about Yam Suf. Again, Baruch haba, I'm so happy to see you. And I hope really tremendous Yeshuot to Am Yisrael. But in order to see the Yeshuot, we actually have to make it happen. It would start when we actually start loving and appreciating one another, ba'asher hem, whatever they are. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu have rachamim on us, when we're going to have love for each other. Shabbat shalom.